On Thanksgiving, I faced rejection from my kids, then an envelope revealed an amazing surprise. David stared at the empty dining table, its surface gleaming with the promise of a feast that would never be. The smell of roasting turkey filled the air, a bouquet of hope mingling with impending despair. Thanksgiving was creeping closer, and this year, he had envisioned laughter bouncing off the walls, his kids Emma and Jake gathered around, engaging in silly arguments over who got the last scoop of stuffing. But that dream began to slip away the moment he discovered their plans to spend the holiday with friends. Rejection stung like a whip, sharp and unyielding. He remembered the Thanksgivings of old, the room alive with chatter and joy, the clinking of forks, the aroma of rich gravy, children squabbling over dessert. His fingers traced over the faded photographs decorating the mantel, a visual history of joy now eroded by heartbreak. He wished for just one more gathering, just one more chance to reclaim what had been lost. With overflowing pots and sizzling pans, David channeled his longing into the recipes passed down from his mother. He prepared with care, mixing flavors that wove together his family's story with each ingredient. But as he worked, a gnawing emptiness was his only companion. "David, you okay?" His neighbor Ben popped his head in, a turkey baster in hand. "Smells fantastic in here." "Thanks, Ben. Just trying to do up Thanksgiving right." David forced a smile, but his heart felt heavy like an anchor pulling him down. Just before sunset, with the table set and candles lit, an unsettling quiet enveloped the house. He sat alone at the table, a single plate before him. Tears brimmed as he recalled each joyful moment that now felt like shards of glass, echoing painfully in the silence. He could hear the laughter of the past, and it bit at him. Would he ever get his family back? Then, something caught his eye. An envelope slipped under the door. Curious, he rose, his heart quickening in anticipation. When he opened it, a stack of letters tumbled out. They were from Emma and Jake, each letter a window into their hearts. Their penmanship wavered with raw emotion, reflecting deep regrets and hopes for reconciliation. "I know we haven't been close lately," Dad. Emma's words spilled forth, each line a mix of sincerity and vulnerability. Jake echoed similar sentiments, and David felt a weight lift off his chest with every painful admission, every note of gratitude. The letters were not the end but an invitation for a fresh beginning. Tears streamed down David's face, and as he read, frail hopes began to bloom. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The clock ticked on as David clutched the letters tightly, feeling hope pulse through his veins. He realized that perhaps, just perhaps, his family's fracturing could be stitched back together. Could he muster the courage to reach out? To invite them to return home? He envisioned their smiles, the warmth of their presence, the laughter he longed for filling the house again. The letters felt like seeds of possibility. With each passing heartbeat, David's resolve solidified. Thanksgiving wasn't over yet. Would he take the leap and bridge the chasm that had grown between him and his children? The thought electrified his heart, setting his spirit aflame. It was time to answer their call. With renewed determination, David wiped his tears, setting the letters down with trembling hands. His heart raced, the flicker of hope igniting within him like a warm candle in the dark. The dining room, once draped in desolation, now felt ripe with possibilities. He quickly gathered his phone, fingers hovering over the screen. Should he call them? Should he text? The fear of rejection loomed once again, but it was overshadowed by a new urgency, the desire to reach out, to close the gap that felt like a canyon between him and his children. Taking a breath, he dialed Emma's number. The silence stretched endlessly as he listened to the ringing on the other end. Each chime felt like a heartbeat, rapid, anxious, full of hope and dread. Finally, she answered, her voice cracking through the static. "Dad?" "Emma, it's me," he said, his voice quiet yet firm. "I just read your letter. I'm so proud of you. I miss you, and I'd love for you to come home for Thanksgiving. I'm here, alone, but I prepared everything." A moment hung in the air, thick and heavy with uncertainty. I thought you might be upset with us," Emma murmured, vulnerability clear in her voice. "I don't want to interrupt your plans." "Plans?" David chuckled lightly, his anxiety easing as he spoke. "All I've got is a table set for one, just me and some turkey. You coming home would make it the best meal I've had in years." There was silence before she finally responded. "I'll talk to Jake. I'll do my best." "Thank you, Emma. Just please let him know how much I miss him," he said, heart racing again at the possibilities. As they hung up, he felt a renewed sense of purpose wash over him. Making a few quick adjustments to the table settings, David lit another candle, its flame dancing with newfound energy. He imagined laughter filling the void, the familiar sound mingling with the savory aroma of his mother's recipes. Would they really come home? He had to believe they would. Time passed, and David poured himself a glass of sparkling cider, trying to keep himself steady as excitement turned his stomach into knots. The clock ticked like a countdown, each chime echoing in his ears. Finally, the soft jingle of keys at the door sent his heart leaping. He barely had time to set down his drink before Emma stepped inside, her face radiating warmth. "Dad!" she exclaimed, followed closely by Jake, who held a hesitant smile. "Hey, kids," he breathed, his voice catching in his throat. The sight of them flooded him with emotions he couldn't articulate. He moved forward, arms wide open, and they rushed into his embrace. It felt like coming home, a moment suspended in time, where all the past grievances melted away. "I'm so sorry, Dad," Jake murmured, his voice muffled against David's shoulder. "I didn't mean to hurt you." It's okay," David soothed, fighting back tears. For the first time in a long while, his family felt whole again. He led them to the table, where every dish sparkled under the candlelight. "Wow, you went all out!" Emma exclaimed, her expression glowing with appreciation. "Yeah, I figured we could celebrate together, after all," David replied, heart swelling with the embrace of togetherness. As they dug into the spread, warmth filled the room, laughter bubbled up, and voices intertwined in joy. But just as he took a breath of relief, the doorbell rang again. David's heart raced as he exchanged glances with Emma and Jake, uncertainty once more seating itself at the table. What could this sudden interruption mean? He stood up slowly, unease creeping back into the warmth they had just created. What awaited him on the other side of the door? Would this be another moment of joy or another challenge to face? David hesitated at the door, his palm resting on the cool handle. The laughter at the table faded into an anxious murmur as his heart raced again, this time fueled by uncertainty. He exchanged a glance with Emma, who sat at the edge of her seat, her brows knitted in curiosity. Jake's expression mirrored that of his sister, concern shadowing the joy that had just lit their faces. That he turned the handle and opened the door, revealing a woman standing on the stoop, her smile warm yet tentative. "David?" she asked, her voice soft and almost melodic. "Yes, that's me," he replied, still bewildered. She held a large envelope delicately, almost as if it contained something fragile. "I'm sorry to disturb your evening," she continued, "but I have something that belongs to you. It's from the kids." David blinked, his brain scrambling to make sense of the words. "From the kids?" She nodded, handing him the envelope. His fingers brushed against the paper, and a cascade of emotions swelled inside him. He glanced back at Emma and Jake, who were now standing, their expressions a mixture of confusion and anticipation. "What is going on?" Emma asked, her voice low as if afraid the moment might shatter. David looked back at the woman, who was starting to step back toward the stairs. "Just open it," she urged gently, and with that, she turned and walked away, leaving David at the threshold of the door. Before he knew it, the envelope was in his hands, and he was tearing it open. Inside lay neatly folded sheets of paper, and as he unfolded them, his breath hitched. David scanned the words, each line brimming with love, regret, and revelations. "Dad, we know things have been hard between us," he read aloud, his heart pounding. "There's so much we wished we could say. This was never just about you and Mom, it's about us learning how to be together again." David paused, glancing at his children, their eyes wide as they took in every word he spoke. He could feel the air thickening between them, anticipation and nervousness coiling like a spring. Jake leaned forward, urgency buzzed in his voice. "What does it say, Dad? What does it say? This Thanksgiving, we want to show you how much we love you. We reached out to someone special," David continued, his throat tightening. The letters revealed how Emma and Jake had worked together behind the scenes, trying to mend their relationship with him, planning something he could never have imagined. "What did you kids do?" David whispered, the weight of the envelope now feeling like a treasure in his hands. Emma stepped closer, her voice trembling. "We wanted to invite Mom, to see if she'd come. We thought, maybe together we could find a way to be a family again." David's heart soared. A rush of hope flooded him as he felt the contours of their plan unfold. "You reached out to your mother?" Both nodded, their expressions equal parts fear and excitement. Just then, the sound of the doorbell echoed softly again, and David turned to the door with renewed energy. "Is that?" With a click, the door flew open, revealing a familiar figure. Barbara, his ex-wife, stood there, carrying an empty casserole dish and looking just as surprised to see him as he was to see her. "Happy Thanksgiving, David," she said, a tentative smile breaking across her face. "I'm not sure how this will go, but I thought I'd bring this." She gestured toward the dish with a slight shake of her hands. David felt his heart swell with an overwhelming mix of hope, fear, and a bittersweet ache of nostalgia. Could this really be the beginning of a new chapter? Would they all find a way to mend the pieces of their fractured family together? As he stared into her eyes, uncertainty still lingered in the air, but one thing was clear. They all took a deep breath, united by love, hope, and a shared desire to rebuild what had once been lost. What awaited them now? A triumphant reunion or the resurfacing of old wounds? David stood frozen at the door, his heart hammering as he met Barbara's gaze. Time hung suspended. It was as if the air itself had thickened with unspoken words, unresolved emotions swirling between them. "Wow, I didn't expect to see you standing there," he finally said, trying to keep his voice steady, as Emma and Jake cautiously moved closer, their eyes darting between the two adults. "I know things have been complicated," Barbara replied, her voice fragile yet firm. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other, the casserole dish rattling against her forearm. "But I figured it was worth a shot. The kids, they told me you'd be here." The mention of their children sent a jolt through David. He had spent so many nights thinking about what it would be like to have their family together again, to recreate the laughter that once filled their home. He stepped aside, heart racing as he motioned her in. "Come in. It's been a while." Emma and Jake slipped past him, their gazes locked on their mother, branches of hope carefully stretched toward the possibility of a reconciliation. Inside, the aroma of roasting turkey enveloped them, grounding the surreal moment. Barbara placed the casserole on the kitchen counter with a gentle clink. She took a breath, her shoulders relaxing slightly as she observed the familiar place that had once been filled with comfort and chaos. "Did you cook that?" David motioned toward the dish, trying to alleviate some of the weight of the moment. "Yes," Barbara said, her smile broadening. "It's a new recipe. I hope you like it." "I'm sure it's great. Just like the old times," David said, the words escaping before he could catch them. A silence settled, thick with nostalgia. Jake's voice broke through, bouncing with youthful bravado. "How are we going to celebrate? We have so much to be thankful for." Barbara looked to her children, her heart warming at their enthusiasm. "Well, I guess we start with sharing what we're thankful for. It could be a new tradition," she suggested. Emma nodded slowly, her excitement tempered with caution. "That could work." But maybe we should also talk about what has happened. How we can move forward. David felt a knot tightening in his chest. It was a risky proposition, to dive into the hurt and confusion that had marked their past. But, looking at his children, he knew it was necessary. "I think that's a good idea, he agreed, his voice softening. "We have a lot to unpack." The conversation that followed was a delicate dance, each member of the family weaving through old grievances and tender moments. Muscles tensed at times, laughter spilled over in others, easing the simmering tensions. Each shared reflection, every burst of honesty felt oddly freeing. Suddenly, Barbara turned serious, her gaze steady on David. "I've been thinking a lot about our family. Even when things fell apart, there was still love between us." The sincerity in her voice washed over him like a warm wave. David's fingers twitched, itching to reach out, to bridge the gap that had felt so expansive for so long. "I missed that love," he admitted, vulnerability cracking his tone. "We've all been through so much." As they navigated through their vulnerabilities, a tension hung in the air, a question that felt unanswerable yet necessary loomed. The deep breath they took together felt like a checkpoint, each of them silently hoping for healing, yet terrified of the outcome. But before they could dive deeper, the sound of footsteps broke their circle. Emma chimed in, her eyes brightening. "Let us set the table and eat. We'll feel better after some good food." The laughter returned as they rallied together, a renewed energy coursing through the room. They moved in an easy rhythm, a melody of clinks and chatter that felt almost right, yet behind the laughter was a lingering truth. Would this tentative unity hold? Would they find a way to put the pieces back together? As the first plates were served, and the memories began to unfurl with every shared bite, David could only wonder, would this be the Thanksgiving they all needed, or would the past crash back in like an unwelcome tide? The tension clung like steam as the door creaked open again in the distance, a new sound drawing their attention. A knock echoed softly. Who could it be now? David glanced at the door, confusion swirling in his mind. Who could possibly arrive at that moment? The kids paused, eyes wide, mirroring his uncertainty. For a fleeting moment, hope flickered before it was quickly extinguished by the dim shadows of past arguments. "Should I get it?" Jake asked, his innate curiosity igniting the air. "Yeah, go for it," David replied, forcing a smile. As Jake dashed toward the door, David's heart raced. He clutched the edge of the dining table, feeling the textured wood beneath his fingers, wondering if fate would throw them another curveball tonight. Jake swung the door open to reveal a familiar figure, an older woman with bright eyes and a warm smile, dressed in a cozy sweater. "Surprise!" she exclaimed, her smile as wide as the horizon. "I thought I might crash your Thanksgiving." "Grandma!" Emma squealed, and darted toward her, arms outstretched. David exhaled a sigh of relief, his heart lightening. Grandma's presence had an undeniable charm. She transformed any room, her laughter a balm for old wounds. "Hi, sweetheart." Grandma enveloped Emma in a hug, then turned her gaze to David and Barbara, her expression softening. "You both look well. I'm so happy to see you all together." "Thanks for coming, Mom," David said, suddenly aware of how the atmosphere had shifted. "Of course," she beamed, stepping inside. "I figured there's no better time to remind you all how important family is. Besides, I brought pie." The table was quickly transformed from a hotbed of tension to a colorful display of anticipation. The aroma of her homemade pie mingled with the savory turkey, creating an almost intoxicating blend. They all gathered around as Grandma began to cut the first slice, the room filled with a comforting commotion. As they dug into the food, David couldn't shake the lingering complexity of emotions as they shared light-hearted stories about old family traditions. But with every chuckle, every nostalgic glance, underneath it all lay the ghost of the conversations they avoided, the raw, honest talks about past pain still looming over them. "Wow, Barbara, this casserole is amazing," Grandma chimed, cutting through his thoughts as she took another bite. "You always did have the magic touch." David watched Barbara's face flush with pride, her eyes sparkling under the warm kitchen lights. It felt like a small victory for her. Jake piped up, fighting to be heard over the chatter. "Can we also talk about what we're thankful for now?" His youthful enthusiasm was contagious. "Absolutely," Barbara replied, a softness in her voice. "Let us not just say it, let's really think about it." Emma nodded earnestly. "Grandma, can you go first?" Grandma smiled warmly, taking a moment to collect her thoughts. "I'm thankful for this beautiful family, for the laughter we share even when things get hard. Every moment counts. We have to hold on to each other to get through the tough times." Her words hung in the air, a soothing balm over their collective wounds. David felt the shift, a glimmer of hope building in the atmosphere, yet the reality of their prior struggles loomed nearby. "I'm thankful too," Jake chimed in. "For you all. Even when things don't work out the way we want them to, we can still be together." David's heart swelled with pride, and an unexpected tear slipped down his cheek. There it was, a true moment of connection, of recognition. But before they could continue sharing, Barbara spoke up, her voice shaky but determined. "And I'm thankful for us, for the chance to maybe start fresh. To rebuild." David's breath caught with the weight of her statement because he, too, wished for that chance. The tension was palpable, a bittersweet reminder of how far they had come and the distance still left to cover. As cheers and laughter erupted again, Grandma placed an envelope on the table, abruptly grabbing everyone's attention. "Oh! I almost forgot. There's something inside here for each of you." Curiosity lit their faces as she handed out the envelopes. What was this surprise? David's hands trembled slightly as he opened his. Inside, a photograph was tucked neatly, a moment captured from years ago when they were all together. Beneath it, a handwritten note: "Let us not forget why we love each other, no matter what challenges come our way." His heart raced as he looked up, eyes meeting Barbara's, who wore a similar expression of astonishment. Could this be the catalyst for transformation? Was it finally time for healing? As questions darted through his mind, the warmth from the dining table surrounded him, and the laughter continued to flow. But would that laughter survive the revelations on the horizon? And what other surprises lay hidden within Grandma's envelopes? David's heart pounded in his chest, the old photo triggering a flood of memories. Images of laughter, family vacations, and simple afternoons spent in their backyard flashed before his eyes. Yet, happiness felt bittersweet. Years of hurt lingered, and he was unsure how to bridge the gap. Jake, with a mischievous glint in his eyes, held up his own photograph. "Look! It's us at the beach," he said, grinning from ear to ear. The framed moment captured the kids building sandcastles, their faces radiant and carefree. "Hey, I remember that day," Emma added, her voice bubbling with nostalgia. Grandma chuckled, her laughter wrapping around them like a soft blanket. "You two were determined to build the biggest castle on the shore. I still believe you could have taken on the world that day." As stories flowed, David couldn't help but watch the kids share their own versions of the past. The joy was palpable, a reminder of their bond. But for David, underneath this cheerful atmosphere, anxiety simmered. Could they truly start fresh? "Alright, who's next?" Grandma prompted, her eyes twinkling with love and mischief as she looked at Barbara. Barbara took a deep breath, glancing between the kids and David. "I am thankful for this moment." Her voice was steady but still held a trace of vulnerability. "For each of you being here. I want us to try to rebuild what we had, to be a family again." David's breath caught again. He could feel the tension begin to weave into the room, but he held on. This was a chance to heal, to admit that they all needed one another in ways they hadn't been able to express. Suddenly, Emma spoke, her voice soft yet powerful. "I miss the times we all laughed together. I want to make new memories." David's heart swelled as he stared at her. She was young, yet her optimism was light in the darkness that sometimes crept in. "Me too." Jake added. Can we do something fun together soon? Absolutely, Barbara replied, brightening. Let us plan a family outing. Something we can all enjoy. That's a great idea, David echoed, the warmth of hope slowly replacing the cold edges of doubt. The conversation shifted easily again, as Grandma initiated a new topic about her adventures in the senior center cooking classes. Laughter bubbled up, making the past seem more like an ebb and flow of life, rather than a static weight dragging them down. Yet as comfortable as the laughter felt, David's eyes drifted to the remaining envelopes on the table. What other surprises were waiting? Hold on, Grandma said suddenly, looking earnestly at them. Before you all dive back into the pie, let us finish our thankful circle. Who else wants to share? David hesitated. He exchanged glances with Barbara, whose eyes urged him to go ahead. I'm thankful, he started, his voice wavering as he gathered his courage. For the chance to be better. I want to show you both that I can be a better dad. I know I've missed a lot, but I want to change that. The air seemed to thicken, almost electric with unspoken emotions. Jake and Emma's eyes were locked on him, curiosity and a hint of skepticism battling for dominance. What do you mean? Jake asked, tilting his head slightly, both intrigued and uncertain. David took a deep breath. I mean, I want to be more present, more involved. I want us to have those new memories Emma talked about. Together. The younger voices quieted as they absorbed his words, a moment of reflection hanging in the air. Just as everything seemed to settle, Grandma chimed in again, her smile wide but her eyes twinkling with mischief. And speaking of new memories, just wait until you see what's in those envelopes. The room buzzed with excitement and curiosity, and David felt a wave of fresh hope wash over him. He was ready for whatever transformation lay ahead as long as they faced it together. What truths would emerge next? And what awaited them behind Grandma's cheerful facade? David's anticipation hung thick in the air, like the scent of pumpkin pie wafting from the kitchen. The light-hearted conversations faded, replaced by the focus on Grandma and those mysterious envelopes. He could see the excitement flashing in the kids' eyes. They leaned forward, eager for whatever came next. All right, let us see what we have here. Grandma declared, spreading the envelopes across the table like a magician revealing her tricks. Her hands trembled slightly, betraying her enthusiasm. Which one first? Jake asked with a teasing grin. Let us go with the biggest. Emma chimed in, pointing at a large, colorful envelope. Good choice. Grandma laughed, lifting it into the air dramatically. This one is filled with all the creative talents I discovered during my senior cooking classes. David chuckled. It was classic Grandma, always the one to find joy in the simple things. As she opened the envelope, David couldn't help but feel a weight growing in his chest. The energy of the moment sparkled, but his mind wandered back to the unspoken tensions that lay underneath. Grandma started pulling out colorful recipe cards. Here's a recipe for apple pie that will make your taste buds dance. She held it up, and the kids squealed in delight. Wait, can we bake it together? Emma suggested, her eyes bright. Absolutely. And here's another one for chocolate chip cookies, Grandma continued, a teasing smile plastered on her face. David watched their excitement with mixed feelings. Suddenly, he felt the yearning to connect, yet the distance remained. Sure, this was fun, but would it ever bridge their shattered past? Yearning pressed against him as harder than he had imagined. With a wave of nostalgia washing over the table, Grandma presented an envelope adorned with the kids' scribbled names. This one is special. You two made this when you were little, and I've been keeping it safe all these years. Oh my gosh, I remember this. Jake exclaimed, his eyes wide as he reached for it. As he opened it, old photographs spilled out. There were candid shots of birthdays and holidays, faded yet beautiful memories. The kids gasped as images of them blowing out candles and late-night movie marathons flashed before them. I can't believe we did this, Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. Grandma smiled softly. You two were always full of joy, even when things got tough. David's heart ached at her words. It wasn't just about the memories, it was the love that accompanied them. The kind of love they had shared before life got complicated. Hey, can we recreate one of these days? Jake suggested, flipping through the photos. Let us have a birthday party with this theme. That's a sweet idea. Barbara approved, a tear glistening in her eye. The energy shifted again, renewed hope blooming in the room like flowers in spring. But David felt something shifting within him. After all the wishing for this moment, he didn't want it to slip away. Gathering courage again, he turned to face his kids. If we're doing this, I want us to be honest with each other. I don't want just another band-aid fix. I know I have a lot to make up for Dad. You are here now, Emma said. That's what matters. Jake nodded in agreement, light hearts lifting the weight off David's shoulders, even if just a little, but before he could respond, Grandma held up another envelope, teasing them with mystery. And here we have the grand finale. What's in that one? Jake asked, bouncing on his toes, curiosity overtaking the moment. David leaned forward, anticipation building. Would this be a revelation that would truly change everything beneath the surface? Let us find out, Grandma grinned, pulling the envelope closer. As she tore it open, David's breath caught. What would this final surprise hold? Would it be the bridge they needed, or would it uncover wounds that still needed healing? This was becoming more than just a game of memories. It was a journey into their past and perhaps a way to build their future. The room stood still in expectant silence, waiting for the next revelation. Grandma's hands shook slightly as she pulled out the contents of the envelope, her eyes dancing between the colorful papers. David held his breath, hoping whatever was revealed could illuminate what they needed most, connection. With a flourish, she unfolded a larger piece of paper. This, she announced with an air of excitement, is something I've been working on. A family recipe scrapbook. She glanced at the kids, her grin widening. I thought it would be nice for all of us to share our favorite recipes along with some stories behind them. Wait, a scrapbook? Jake asked, his eyebrows arching with curiosity. Yes. Each of you can contribute. I had everyone's favorites written down, along with a little note about why they love it, Grandma replied, her voice warm and inviting. David sensed a shift in the atmosphere as the idea sank in. He could feel the children's eagerness, the air buzzed with their excitement about creating something together. Like the lasagna we always make for Grandma's birthday? Emma asked, her eyes lighting up. Exactly. Grandma exclaimed, her enthusiasm contagious. Or that chocolate cake you love so much, Jake. Jake's face broke into a wide grin, and his energy was infectious. Let us do it. We can include pictures, too. And make it a family project. Wait a second, David interjected, trying to rein in the spontaneous rush. Are you all sure about this? What if we're not ready? Eyes turned to him, uncertainty surfacing. But Emma stepped in, her voice steady. Dad, this is exactly what we need. It's about us being together, sharing what we love, and maybe it'll really help us. The sincerity in Emma's voice struck him. He knew this was more than just recipes. It was about creating bonds, mending what had been broken. David nodded, feeling the knot in his chest loosening. Grandma spread the scrapbook open, revealing the blank pages waiting to be filled. We can start right now. Everyone pick a favorite dish, and we can brainstorm how to tell its story. Jake flipped through the pages. Can we write down funny things that happened while cooking, too? Like the time I burned the brownies? Oh gosh, I remember that. Grandma chuckled. And you blamed me for not watching you carefully. Laughter echoed in the room, dispelling the lingering tension. David's heart swelled with affection for the chaos of their family. This light-hearted moment felt like a promise of brighter days, a step toward healing. Okay. I'll share the lasagna recipe, Emma piped up, her voice brimming with excitement. I'll help you with that. Jake cheered. David couldn't help but smile at their enthusiasm. He reached for the larger scrapbook. His fingers brushed against the glossy paper. Can I add my own dish, too? Maybe my famous chili? Of course. We can create a grand chili cook-off. Emma suggested. Before he knew it, David found himself swept up in the excitement. The cookbook would tell the story of their family not just through food, but through laughter, joy, and even the mishaps that bonded them. Just then, Grandma's voice broke through David's thoughts. And if we find a way to make this a tradition, we might even create new memories to cherish in the future. David felt a twinge of emotion. What if we add a section for each family member's favorite memory associated with the dish? We could share stories. Great idea, Dad. Jake exclaimed, with enthusiasm buzzing in the air. They began tossing around recipe ideas, stories flying, laughter mixing with anticipation. David could see his children's faces light up, filled with hope and joy. It felt like they were stitching the past to the present, one recipe at a time, but as the energy surged, a thought crept into David's mind: what other secrets were still buried? What if some recipes held memories best left untouched? As they turned the pages, he wondered if he could handle the weight of those unspoken histories coming to light. At Thanksgiving next year, Grandma said, her voice a little quieter, this will be a centerpiece of our celebration. David glanced at his kids, their faces glowed with excitement, but with every turn of the page, a question lingered: would this scrapbook truly help them heal, or would it bring back memories that were better left hidden? As they dove into their project, he knew they, too, would have to face the past and everything it would reveal. The laughter had barely faded as David watched Emma scribble down her thoughts for the lasagna recipe. Jake leaned over, giving his sister pointers on the best kind of cheese to use, while Grandma organized the supplies around them. It felt warm and alive, like sunlight pouring through a window after long winter days. But deep within him simmered a mixture of hope and trepidation. Emma glanced up from her notes, eyes sparkling. Dad, remember when Grandma almost forgot the secret ingredient and we had to run to the store last minute? David chuckled, recalling the last-minute rush, the kind of story that would add flavor to their scrapbook, the kind of story that would weave them closer together. And you were convinced we'd never get it in time, right? Yup. I even thought we were doomed. She laughed, already writing it down. But something tugged at him, a shadow in the vibrant memories. What about the stories tucked away, the ones too painful to relive? As they wrote, Grandma suddenly paused, her face unreadable. You know, I have some old recipes from my mother. They're a bit complicated, but they hold a lot of memories. David felt his heart race. He had heard whispers about Grandma's childhood recipes. Some were tied to happier memories, filled with laughter, but others, he sensed, pointed to a history that was more tangled and raw. Are you sure you want to include them? He asked, his voice dipping. Grandma smiled gently. Every dish carries a story, David. It's part of who we are. We can't shy away from that. Her words echoed in him, and he felt a mix of pride and fear. Could he face whatever those recipes had to share? Jake, sensing the tension, chimed in. We can handle anything. Besides, if they're important to you, then they're important to us too. His determination radiated, and David was grateful for his son's support, but insecurity still nodded within him. Okay, then let us do it, Grandma said, her voice firm yet tender. I'll bring them out next time. Prepare for a history lesson in the kitchen. The kids cheered, their eagerness igniting the very air around them. David swallowed hard. They were racing towards something deeper, something that could change everything, and yet he still felt tethered to his fears. As the minutes passed, they transformed the scrapbook into a bubbling cauldron of love, family quirks, and joyful memories. Each recipe sparked laughter, and soon they were piled together on the couch, a chaotic quilt of paper, pens, and glitter paper. The bright colors seemed to dance, reflecting the warmth blooming in the room, but amidst the laughter, they were all too aware of the empty pages. With every hearty meal they reminisced about, David felt the growing anticipation of what was still to reveal itself. He glanced at his children, their innocent faces shining with hope. As they started to wind down, Grandma offered a suggestion. For our next entry, let us choose one of the more serious recipes. Something that can help us tell a deeper story. David's heart tugged at the thought. Would revisiting those bittersweet recipes draw them even closer, or would it expose fractures that time had merely hidden? He felt both anxious and curious, and the thought of what lay ahead hung heavy in the air. We should make it a big reveal, Jake said, bouncing in his seat. A surprise dinner. Sounds fun. Emma agreed, her voice laced with excitement. Philly cheesesteaks. No. Grandma's gumbo. Jake insisted, and their playful argument echoed through the room. In the middle of their banter, Grandma paused. You all have to promise something, though, she said, her eyes twinkling. No matter how tough the memories may be, they brought us here. David took a deep breath. One foot was stepping forward, but his heart remained tethered to fear. Would they truly be ready for what the recipes might unearth? As they finalized their plans for the next family project, David knew they were on a journey filled with unknowns and the potential for healing. But with every recipe they documented, a knot tightened in his stomach. What secrets, buried deep within their family history, would emerge when they uncovered the past? What if some stories were too painful to revisit? In that moment, he realized there was no turning back. The adventure awaited them, and the next chapter was about to unfold. The air was thick with anticipation as David sat surrounded by his children and mother, the glow of the candlelight flickering against their hopeful faces. Speaking of the future, they had unintentionally summoned memories, some bittersweet, some joyous, each recipe a thread tying them to a heritage of love, laughter, and learning. With the scrapbook now an integral part of their Thanksgiving, David felt something surge within him. The time had come for the family to not only celebrate what was good but to embrace the shadows of their past. As Grandma arranged the envelopes before them, David knew they needed to address the complexity of their emotions. Guys, before we dive into the next recipe, I just want to say, I'm proud of us. Proud of this moment, he began, his voice steady. His children exchanged glances, their curiosity evident. But I think it's important that we also discuss the not-so-easy parts, the recipes tied to moments we might rather forget. Emma took a deep breath, then nodded. Yeah, we can't just pretend everything's okay. We need to face what's tough too. Jake chimed in, right. We all have stories that connect us, even if they hurt. These heartfelt words forged a bond around the table, illuminating the path forward. David looked at his children, overwhelmed by their strength. He worried they wouldn't want to touch the past. Instead, they were stepping up to embrace it. I think I know which recipe we should start with, he said, his breath hitching. Barbara's grilled chicken. The last time we made it together, it ended in a huge fight. I remember that night vividly. His voice faltered as he reminisced, but the memory hung in the air like a specter, beckoning them closer. I remember that too, Emma added, her voice more tender now. You both were so mad at each other. I didn't know what to do. Yes, Jake said, a spark igniting. But maybe, when we recreate it, we can talk it through. About what happened, how we felt, and what we can do differently. Exactly. It's about understanding, not just cooking, David agreed, feeling the warmth of family seep through the tender cracks of past grievances. Bringing the recipe back to life may help us see things differently, you know. Grandma beamed, her eyes shimmering with pride. That's the spirit. You're facing it, and it will make you stronger. Relationships take work, but you're all brave enough for it. And so they began their project, digging up Grandma's original recipe card. Each ingredient transformed from mere text on paper to a symbol of their journey, a reminder that the essence of cooking comes not just from ingredients but from the love, struggles, and growth sprinkled in between. The kitchen erupted with laughter and playful banter as they chopped vegetables and measured spices, each moment redeeming the weight of the past. As they worked, lingering pain subsided, replaced by a sense of camaraderie. David shared stories of his tumultuous marriage, his voice laced with regret and realization. Barbara listened with a tight smile, their children absorbing every word. "Those times were hard, and I'm sorry for raising my voice, but it doesn't define us," he continued, feeling the tides shift around the table. Then it was Barbara's turn. Her voice was soft yet clear. "I felt isolated then, like I was fighting against a wave. There were moments I just wanted us to be united in love, but instead, I became the wall." Tears glimmered in her eyes, but her vulnerability felt like an olive branch extended at the dinner table. "I think we all dropped the ball sometimes," David acknowledged, heart racing. "I wish I had been kinder when you needed me to be." A tender silence enveloped the room, stitched together with the threads of shared regret and healing. With the meal nearing completion, excitement rippled through David's heart. They set the table with care, each plate a testament to their efforts and intention. Tiny, tentative smiles shared between him and Barbara reflected the beginning of reconciliation, a hope kindled from ashes. Finally, as they gathered around the table, the familial bonds woven through decades filled the atmosphere with warmth. David raised his glass of cider, eyes glistening with gratitude. "To new beginnings. To love that knows no bounds, and to understanding that unfurls in the face of vulnerability. Amen to that." Jake exclaimed, clinking his glass against Emma and Grandma's, his voice bubbling with enthusiasm. The aroma of the chicken encircled them, a fragrant embrace that melted away lingering worries. They shared bites filled with laughter, a medley of past and present harmony, ever hopeful. As they recounted stories of mishaps from the past, interspersed with dreams of a cultivated future, David couldn't help but believe that magic had returned to this family table. When dessert arrived, Grandma's famous pie, it was the perfect ending to an unforgettable feast. David watched as Emma and Jake took turns sharing childhood memories and aspirations for the future. The energy filled every corner of the room, an unbridled joy that felt both familiar and transformative. This Thanksgiving hadn't been without its challenges. It had been a journey through rejection, realization, and ultimately, reunion. As David looked around the table, he felt a new sense of belonging blossom, a reassuring truth drawing them closer than ever before. They were not just surviving, they were thriving together. In that moment, he understood the importance of these gatherings. They were threads in the elaborate tapestry of their lives, woven together by love and the courage to face the past. And on this Thanksgiving, they had planted the seeds of possibility, fortified the roots of their shared histories, ready to blossom into hopeful tomorrows. As they made one last toast, a thought cascaded through David's mind: let this be the beginning. The laughter returned, resounding through the home, igniting the fiery promise of new memories waiting to be made. And with that, they embraced a future brighter than ever before. Don't wait. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and comment below your favorite Thanksgiving memories. Remember to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't stay quiet, come join our journey as we create more moments just like this one.